Good afternoon. We have the pleasure and the great honor to take part in this wonderful taxation forum, the 17th taxation forum. And I believe we should congratulate one more time the excellent Taxation Committee on organizing this wonderful conference. And of course, we should thank the Hellenic American Chamber of Commerce. It is the second time that I work with the Taxation Committee as chair of the EIE Committee of the American-Hellenic Chamber of Commerce. And I can tell you that we have always tried to join forces in order to make important changes. So, as I said, it is a great pleasure to be the moderator of this panel. We have with us Mr. Dimas, the Deputy Minister. We all know how many important things he has done. We have Ms. Pramatari, the well-known Katerina Pramatari. She is known for all the wonderful things she is doing in the university and in Uni.Fund. And from Salonika, we have with us, we are missing him, of course. We would like to have him here in person, but still, we have Professor Panayiotis Ketikidis, Vice President of Research and Innovating, City College. We don't have a lot of time. Ideally, we should have been given hours in order to talk about this topic, but still, we will do our best. And since I don't want to take more of your time, I would like to start straight away by asking the Deputy Minister, Mr. Dimas, some questions. Before I pose the questions, I would like to say that creative and hardworking as he is, knowledgeable of innovation and advocate of startup ecosystems, and not only, of course, he is the right person to provide some answers with regard to an important issue we are faced with as a country, and that is that we cannot precisely define the field of startups and innovation so as to implement in that same field different incentives and policies, be it of taxation nature or other nature, which, of course, is also the reason that has made many of our young, bright minds leave the country and live and work abroad. It is the so-called brain drain. Now, on the other hand, if we fail to support the existing businesses operating in Greece, unfortunately, we will never be able to change the tide, and the brain drain will continue. The point is that these businesses are worthy of our support. So I would like to ask him as representative of the Ministry of Development and Investments, and under your capacity, how do you approach this issue, taking, of course, in consideration the developmental policy of the government and the RRF, as well as all other related means and instruments? Mr. Dimas, you have the floor. You know how much time we have. I'm not going to remind you of the time remaining. You can say what you want to say. First of all, I would like to thank the Hellenic American Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to take part in this taxation forum. When I took the office of Deputy Minister of Development and Investments, I wanted to see from the very first moment how many startups operated in the country. And the first thing I did was to try and to define startups. As you aptly said, I addressed to the National Council of Research and Innovation, the ESETEC. Basically, we first established ESETEC, in which take part professors of universities, researchers, businessmen, and it is actually the superior advisory body to the government. And I approached them in order to define which are the businesses that can be characterized as startups and how we can make the distinction between startups and newly established. So we worked together with the ESETEC, and we set some very specific criteria that need to be met. The first criteria is the following. It should have operation of less than 8 years, not to employ over 250 employees, the turnover not to exceed the 5 million annually, and the legal form of the company to be SA. Société Anonyme. As I said, we wanted to make the distinction between startups and newly established companies. That is why we have introduced two other criteria. The first one has to do with innovation. In other words, we want to have the element of innovation present either in the product produced or in the service provided, or even in a process that is proposed. The second criterion that we introduced has to do with the possibility of increasing the sales, the so-called scalability. In other words, this business endeavor to have prospects to be successful beyond the country's borders. Of course, this doesn't mean that it will happen 100%, but at least it should have some prospects. And these are the criteria that we have used because we didn't know how many startups operated, in which sectors, how many people they employed, what was their turnover. So when you don't have this information, it's very difficult to exercise effective policy. That is why we developed Elevated Greece, which initially operated as a registry of startups. We have registered these startups. And now we have answers to all these questions I mentioned earlier. And in less than one time, we have institutionalized incentives like the angel investors, stock options. We have applied an action through NSRF in order to support startups that had suffered from the pandemic. And at the same time, we have developed a network of supporters of Elevate Greece. We introduced the Startup Awards, and we have provided prizes of amounting to 752,000 euros. And out of the official supporters, the private sector that is, we have support given to the startups, to those who provide services that are innovative. They may also provide specialized banking products or cloud services for free, mentoring services. All these supporters from the private sector offer these services to the startups in order to support and boost them. So those who are operating startups are now aware that the state is not the enemy, but an ally. Thank you very much for this summary of the actions implemented. And something else that you have managed to do, something that was quite remarkable, and this is something that all businesses know, that is that the private sector joined forces around these initiatives. In other words, I don't think that there was one single person or one single company or bank or business or association, and even we as a chamber and many others supported these initiatives, and I believe that they have all something to offer. And I believe that this proves that these startups now know and are sure that they will get the help they need from different sizes, not only from the government. And this is very important. And it is also important the fact that you accepted to take part in a panel and not as a main speaker. So after this short intervention, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Pramatari. Mr. Ketikidis, I understand that angels take priority. However, we need to honor the lady we have in our panel. Ms. Pramatari, Katerina, our Katerina, you have a very important role to play, both as a valuable professor that helps and inspires the students of the university. And as I said, I have the honor to chair the Board Advisory Council, but also as the representative of Uni.Fund, you are here to talk about all these issues. And my question is, what is the role that a venture capital can play in supporting all these startups presented to us by the Deputy Minister? and also in the implementation of policies of developmental dimension, and which is the activity of the Uni.Fund. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for inviting a fund to today's discussion. I believe that this is something very important, and it is something that a fund can actually contribute greatly to. Since in Greece, the ecosystem around startups is rather recent, it develops very rapidly and it's quite dynamic. Still, I'm not sure that we are all very familiar with how important funds are in this whole activity. Funds obviously finance those cases that stand out and have the characteristics mentioned by Mr. Dimas, that is innovation, prospect for upscaling. But apart from financing, the funds are here to support the activity of those startups and allow them to be successful. I would say that if there were no funds, many of the efforts wouldn't have made it, not even survived. With Equi-Fund, which I believe was a very effective mechanism, it was a best practice at European level, supported the establishment of new funds during the last 4 years. And thanks to that, startups were established, now are included in Elevate Greece. We're talking about 100 startups that wouldn't have existed if the fund wasn't a reality. I would like to mention that thanks to Uni.Fund that has invested in 23, and it will soon rise, this number. So thanks to the investment by Uni.Fund, thousands of jobs have been created. We now have companies that are a reality, employ 100 people and more, companies that instead of being a far-fetched scenario are now operating in reality. We have also so many successful examples that wouldn't have existed if the fund hadn't supported them. So Uni.Fund and many other funds play a very important role. Now, in more advanced ecosystems or markets, if you like, this is easily understood by the average citizen. But I believe that here in Greece, we are lacking this understanding. And this is now that the average Greek taxpayer starts to get acquainted with the funds and the ecosystem around innovation. Thank you very much. I would like to add something more at this point, something very important in my view, and that is that it's not only financing that is important. It's not that the funds facilitate the whole process so that the startups can actually operate, but I believe that you teach them very valuable lessons about management, about the way they need to approach something they have only in their minds, how they should approach a long-term strategy, how to develop a business plan, and how this business plan will bear some fruits. This had never been clear in the past. In the past, many people thought that, oh, I have a good idea, I can make it happen. This was not the case. Now they are more knowledgeable. Yes, you asked me about the ecosystem, and I use this term repeatedly in my intervention. And I would like to note that when it comes to startups, it is absolutely necessary to have all interested parties cooperating. A fund cannot possibly achieve a lot by itself. That is why it's important to ensure the support and cooperation of universities, of research centers, of business groups, researchers. We help all these interested parties mature as a team, establish a company, understand how they can market the activity of this company, and then slowly but gradually get the necessary funding as well as the support of many other interested parties like incubators, investors, and so on and so forth. Yes, and this is to the benefit of the work of the Deputy Minister. Mr. Ketikidis, how is Salonika doing? Very well, and it's an honor you invited us. We had no other option. Salonika should be present in the conference.
Another representative of the European network of business angels, of IBAN, but he is also the one who was the main factor so as to create the Greek network of business angels. So what is the way, the modus operandi and the importance of business angels for startups, according to this huge role that you have very well defined beforehand? Thank you again. Allow me to start by saying why do we need these networks? And you understand what's the importance for private investors. Let us give a brief definition. What are the business angels and how much they invest? It is well known at the global scale the importance and significance of business angels in the creation of jobs, development, and entrepreneurship of an economy. The European Network of Business Angels, based in Brussels, was established in 1989 with the encouragement of the European Union. Please retain that. And I happen to have the honor to be in the BOD in order to introduce the culture of business angels. The Greek network started with some friends who considered that we should put in the map Greece, which was not there. So in 2012 we started. In 2015 we had the Hellenic Business Angels Network and the national contact person for IBAN and in the Global Business Angel Network. Now, who are and what are business angels? They are private investors that they manage their own funds, not someone else's. That's important. And what they offer to startups in order to help them evolve is called smart finance. That is, a business angel offers smart money. They offer the know-how they have because the business angel invests in companies he knows, in my case technology, in skills, in networking with the contacts that the business angel can offer, where we have doors opening. And the money is the third that comes. It's not the first. And since we stay there with the companies, this is what we call smart finance. This has to stay in mind. Now, to our estimate, there are 400,000 business angels in the USA that have invested in 2019, 2020, 25 billion euros. And in Europe, there are 345,000 business angels who have invested 7.5 billion euros in startups, according to an estimate. Of course, in Europe, the visible entrepreneurship is have 72,000. EU and the USA are the biggest source for funding. So this is important. It's their own equity that they invest, smart money, smart finance, and we don't want to lose our money, so we stay by the company. Of the 10 investments, according to the figures we have from the European Business Angel Network, we lose our money in 9 cases, and then the 10th one, we want to make a big exit. When privates enter, this is a high-risk investment. That's why our network is there to help. I close thus with the first round. So at this point, with the Minister, Madam Pramatari, and Mr. Ketikidis, not only did we delineate, but we also presented the whole ecosystem. We do have an ecosystem of business angels. We don't have to create it from scratch. It's already established, created and established. Therefore, Mr. Dimas, recently, the consultation of the law on spin-ups was concluded. And would you please like to inform us on when are the developments and how do you consider that these actions contribute to sustaining research and innovation? Because this is the next step we have. Since we already have those bases, and they must have greater cooperation and mutual assistance. And if you know, are there tax incentives connected with this whole activity? Nice. Well, if you view Greece in comparison to the other member states of the European Union, you will see that as far as training and research is concerned, in most indices, we are approximately at the European average. In some cases, we are even above the EU average. When we see the part of innovation, how this research is translated into innovation and entrepreneurship, this is where we lag behind. So one of the main priorities we have set is that we can connect far more significantly the important research conducted in the country with innovation and entrepreneurship. One of the first things I realized is that there was not a crystal clear legal framework on the creation of spin-offs, And so we said, along with the Ministry of Education, we have to go hand in hand so as to have a joint, a common institutional framework. The University of Thessaly said one thing, Democritus said another, Ekeka, Ite of Crete, Thessaloniki. There was a discord, if you like, a cacophony, if you like, a great differentiation. So what did we do? We agreed with the Ministry of Education to have a common course. We addressed ourselves to ESEDEC. It set the sectory, it established a sectory council, which is headed by Madam Pramatari, and I would like to officially congratulate her on the excellent work they did. It has gone through the public consultation for that is the new institutional framework of spin-offs will be tabled in the parliament committees next week, and we hope that by the end of this month, within 15 days that is, to be adopted by the plenary session of the parliament. Let me also add something more specifically on spin-offs. We have added that research institutes and university spin-off are automatically integrated in Elevate Greece. So we also have the financial incentives over there. Now, beyond the changes in the institutional framework of the operation, we also promote the support and maturity of the know-how transfer hubs. Whoever has studied research institutes abroad, you must have seen that great effort is put in order to relate the produced research with the market and innovation. It's something that we used not to do in Greece very intensely, and we consider that the support and the maturity of those offices through a joint effort with the Ministry of Education will be extremely beneficial so as to attain this goal. In conclusion, we spoke of tax incentives. Let me say that we have established it is in force since the 1st of September of this year. We have exceeded the over rebates from 120 to 200% tax exemption. Thus, Greece is one of the most attractive countries in the European Union for R&D investments in Greece. This does not make Greece solely more attractive, but for companies already active here, it's an additional boost so as to invest more in R&D. The reason why we place such a big emphasis in R&D investments and innovation investments, because thus we create new, very quality and high remuneration jobs. Thank you. I'm very sorry that we don't have much time. We only have 5 minutes at our disposal. We must very quickly give the floor to Mr. Pramatari and Mr. Ketikidis to make another question, and quite quickly. Katerina.
How do the existing tax incentives fare compared to other countries, compared to best practices from abroad? And allow me to mention another factor. Mr. Dimas referred to it earlier. He talked about spin-offs and how they are evolving, and I believe that this is something very important to mention. Thank you for mentioning the spin-offs in this conference. And so allow me to talk about the investors, since they should also get some tax incentives so as to give their money without any fear and hesitation. Could you please, in 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, say something about that? I will be very brief because things are very clear. The venture capitals and the development of venture capitals is linked with tax incentives. In other countries like England, France, have institutionalized many tax incentives in order to give a boost to venture capitals. And I believe that what happened this year in Greece, that is the provision of special tax incentives to business agents in order for them to make investments, was something unprecedented. And I would like to congratulate Mr. Dimas on that initiative. And I believe that Mr. Ketikidis will talk about it as well. Allow me to highlight something that if we further develop, we will get some very positive results. For example, we need to provide tax incentives to investors in order to become members of the funds, because we should not forget that the startups world is a world of high risk, which means that we need to approach it as such and thus provide tax incentives. So these tax incentives pertain to the participation of investors in funds, but also to the results of the investments that could be made in Greece, since Greece could become a more attractive investment destination. Mr. Ketikidis, what is your view on business angels, tax reliefs, and how the existing tax incentives provided by the Greek government for the promotion of business angel investments compare to the respective best practices from abroad? So, everything is included: research, technology, innovation. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on Elevate Greece. We need to be positive, and we need to acknowledge that this is something that Greece was missing for so many years. And I would like to congratulate Mr. Dimas and all his team. As it was aptly said, business angels are taking risk when they are making investment, and this is something that was not foreseen by the legislator, but still, the point is that business angels make investment at an early age. In other words, before they get a taxation number. This is something very important. They invest in structures that are convertible notes, the so-called bond loans that can be turned into stocks, and this is the most popular means of investment used by business angels. Now in the United States, they are also using SAVE, and since I know that Mr. Dimas is listening to what I'm saying, he needs also to take into account the whole ecosystem in order to promote it even further. And since we don't have much time, we need to adjust to practical measures. We need to allow the networks to make decisions in order for them to promote the business angels. We need to join forces, all of us, the funds, everyone needs to join forces. And moreover, something else, like joint ventures of investments. We cannot make investments all by ourselves. We can make investments through the special purpose vehicles or through platforms. And by the way, I talked about cross-border investments because the fact is that we don't have so many startup companies in which we can invest. So we can take all this into account, and given that we may have a network of business angels, we need to make sure that they will get some incentives in order to make investments in Greece. Okay, I would like to make a proposal, Mr. Dimas. Among all the think tanks that exist in the ministry, what would you say about this think tank? We are always open to proposals. I believe that I would like to make a proposal and it will be accepted. We are always open to proposals. Our doors are always open. However, not everything falls under my competence. This is, of course, something that is of interest to us. Yes, but definitely this could be something to think about since everyone is ready to do something about it. I would like to thank all three of you. It was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you very much for everything you shared with us. You presented Elevate. You shared some other very positive news. I would like to wish you all the best to everything you do. Congratulations to the American Chamber of Commerce and to the committee. And I believe that we made a small contribution to the discussion and to the conclusions that will be drawn at the end of the conference. All the best. And Mr. Dimas, we are here for anything you need. And of course, I am speaking on behalf of Salonika, which, thanks to technology, is like it's here. Thank you very much.